Hello everyone and welcome back to a SwitterX video. Today we're going to be going over an in-depth tutorial, settings tutorial for keyboard and mouse players on console mainly, although this does apply for PC players as well. But this is coming from a PS4 keyboard and mouse player, so you can expect it to be directed mainly towards console players. But nevertheless, I do hope you enjoy this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're new, and without wasting any more of your time, let's get into the video. First, you're going to want to head over to your options, and then if you scroll right 4 times, you're going to find yourself on the keyboard and mouse section. Over here there'll be 6 other little titles, but we'll be worrying about them later on. For now we're going to be focusing on the first section, which is the mouse. So the first setting you're going to come across is menu mouse sensitivity. Now this setting isn't exactly important as such, but if in game you run a really high or a really low sensitivity and you find it difficult to navigate the menu, then that sensitivity can help make that easier for you. But other than that, it's not going to be any game changing setting that you really need to worry about. However, this setting is going to be quite important, unlike the other one, which is mouse sensitivity. Now, in simple terms, mouse sensitivity is the speed of a mouse pointer and how fast it moves on the screen in correlation to your hand. So in other words, this means that the higher sensitivity you have, the less movement you need, but the lower your sensitivity, the more large movements you'll need. Now at the end of the day, this setting is going to come down mainly to personal choice. A lot of people like to run a low sensitivity because they find their aim more consistent, or some people like to run a high sensitivity to achieve those flicks more easier. Now there is a way to achieve the kind of best of both worlds in terms of sensitivity in this game, which I'll be covering on later in the video, but it's probably good if you find a good base sensitivity. Me personally, I prefer a faster base sensitivity because it'll help me with flicking onto my opponents easier, and flicking is quite an important factor in Call of Duty games. However, some people may prefer a slower base sensitivity to be able to track opponents easier, which there is no problem with both, it's just finding out which one you prefer better. So underneath the mouse sensitivity you'll see a small advanced tab, and when you click on that you'll be brought with this drop down list. Now you can see we have a vertical sensitivity multiplier, ground vehicle sensitivity multiplier, air vehicle sensitivity multiplier, and also a tablet sensitivity multiplier. So in my opinion these settings aren't too important. You only really need them if your vehicle sensitivity, for example, feels too slow, and you can turn that up and that will obviously make your sensitivity faster when you're in a vehicle. And then the tablet sensitivity is, for example, when you're using a heartbeat sensor, it will affect your sensitivity when using that. And the vertical sensitivity multiplier is basically your up and down, and you shouldn't really adjust this unless you have used this in the past, because it's just going to mess up your trying to gain muscle memory. So yeah, I probably wouldn't recommend using the vertical sensitivity multiplier. Next up we have the aim down sights mouse sensitivity, or ADS for short. So you can either choose 2 options, which are relative and also legacy. So legacy will base your ADS speed off of your FOV, whilst the relative setting will base your ADS speed off of your monitor size. Now in my opinion I feel that basing off your monitor size is probably the better option, as monitor sizes can vary, and also I've seen most pro players using relative, so I'd probably recommend sticking with relative. So underneath this ADS speed you actually get an advanced drop down menu, and you get 4 different settings, one being low zoom, high zoom, the transition timing, and also the monitor distance coefficient. So the first option you get is low zoom. The description for this setting is that you can further customize your regular ADS sensitivity, and low zoom applies for weapons with a 3.25 magnification scope or iron sights. So if you feel that your sensitivity is too high and you want a lower ADS, but you like your regular base sensitivity, then you can turn this down and you'll still be able to run a reasonably fast base sensitivity, but you can have a slower ADS sensitivity. This also applies the other way around if you have a really low sensitivity and maybe you want a higher ADS sensitivity, which is rare, but I mean people may want that, but you can also change that to fit your needs. And then you have your high zoom, which obviously is anything past 3.25 sensitivity, and you can do the same thing as I described with low zoom. Now your third setting is the transition timing, and you get 3 options. You get instant, gradual, and also after zoom. Instant is, well, instant. So as soon as you've hit your ADS button, you're going to get that applied sensitivity straight away. Gradual is when you're tapping your ADS, it will start to transition to that sensitivity, but only once you fully ADS in. Then after zoom is once you've completely zoomed in, that's when your sensitivity change takes place. So from what I've seen, from what pros use, and also from what I've tried, after zoom is probably out of the picture, so you're going to be left with gradual or instant. Now this kind of depends on how big your ADS difference is, because for me it's quite a reasonably large change. I run instant because I think transitioning into that sensitivity straight away means you can build muscle memory, as there's no kind of in between. But I have seen pros like Vikkstar and Huskerrs use gradual, so this comes down to a bit of personal choice, but from my personal opinion I would go with instant, as you can build more muscle memory. But if you have just a normal ADS speed which you haven't changed, then maybe try gradual. Now those last three settings, mouse acceleration, mouse filtering and mouse smoothing, I'm going to categorize all together because I think they all kind of contribute to the same thing. So I'm going to categorize those together, and I'm going to say for you to disable or put them all down to 0. Now the reason I feel this is because with all of this, it means that you can't really get the raw input of a keyboard and mouse, and because on a console you already get just a slight bit more input delay than PC, it's probably best that you turn all of these off / put it to 0, and that way you're going to be able to reduce the input delay. And we also have that invert mouse look, which basically if you move your mouse up then it'll go down and vice versa. You shouldn't have this on. You may, if you go on helicopters and you in Warzone and you like having invert, then you can do that, but in general I would probably stay away from that. So this will lead us on to our next section, which is about keybinds and focusing more on the keyboard rather than the mouse. So all these kind of settings that you see, like slide behavior, crouch behavior, etc., these are all pretty straightforward and I won't really need to discuss this. It's just the same as a controller except on a keyboard, so you can kind of choose if you want that on or off. But I am going to go over things like optimal keybinds now and explain perhaps some options that you can use. Now we have to take into consideration where our hands are going to be. So we'll usually be playing on WASD, which is your essential movement keybinds. And now what you want to do is you kind of want to position your keybinds kind of around this. So you've got like E, Q, Z, X, C, left shift, left control, the numbers up here to maybe about 5, depends how big your hands are. I have quite big hands, so I can go to like 5 or maybe 6 even. F, G, V, and obviously you got the spacebar. Now these are going to be kind of like your optimal keybinds, which are optimal basically means they're most easiest to access. So you're going to want to focus your keybinds around kind of this area, around WASD, maybe 2 keybinds out. And if you also, if you have a mouse, you may potentially have mouse buttons, which are buttons on the side. These are DPI buttons, so they're not usable. But if you ever have mouse buttons, they're a really good option for you to use as keybinds. So I think that about wraps it up for the settings video. I think when it comes to keybinds, it's more something that you should experiment with and something that makes you feel more comfortable. Literally just go out and try different keybinds, you experiment, use your mouse buttons, numbers, anything around, and you'll eventually find something that you will feel very comfortable with. However, if you do want me to make a keybinds video about what keybinds you use, then please leave a comment down below and I will get to it, I promise that. Also, please consider leaving a like if you found this useful in any way and discovered something new, or perhaps you got some advice. And also please do subscribe if you want more content like this, and also if you like Modern Warfare and Warzone and games like that.